Namaskar, hello and a very warm welcome viewers. You're watching the special presentation of Sansad TV, Bills and Insight, your one-stop destination for views, news and analysis of proposed legislations of India that have far-reaching implications and impact your life. I'm your host Kriti Mishra, and today the spotlight is on the Prohibition of Child Marriage Amendment Bill. This bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha on December 21st and seeks to increase the minimum age of marriage of females to 21 years from the current 18 years. Before the detailed analysis, let's take a look at the highlights of the bill. The bill seeks to provide protection to women against early and child marriage. Brings gender parity, as legal marriageable age for women is 18 currently, and for men this age is 21. The bill also seeks to facilitate women empowerment in the country. So why did we need this bill? The National Family Health Survey found that 23.3% of women in the age group of 20 to 24 years were married before they turned 18. About 6.8% of women in the age group of 15 to 19 years were already mothers or pregnant at the time of the survey. Just 41% of them have had more than 10 years of schooling, as against 50% of men. Even in terms of economic empowerment, such as owning a mobile phone, just 54% of women own a mobile phone that they use. The lower participation of women in the workforce is also partly attributable to lack of education, marriage and domestic responsibilities. The bill says it is imperative to tackle gender inequality and gender discrimination and put in place adequate measures to secure health, welfare and empowerment of our women and girls to ensure status and opportunity for them at par with men. The proposal was primarily based on recommendations delivered by the Task Force Committee headed by Jaya Jaitly, set up by the Ministry of Women and Child Development. The task force was constituted to re-examine the age of marriage and its correlation to health and social indices. The bill has now been referred to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. And for deeper insights on this, I'm joined by an illustrious panel of guests. Joining us in the studio, Ms. Jaya Jaitly, Chairperson, Task Force Committee on this bill. Dr. Vageshwari Deswal, Professor, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. And joining us through virtual platform, Dr. Fauzia Khan, MP Rajya Sabha. She represents the NCP. And before we commence our discussion, here's what Union Minister for Women and Child Development, Smriti Irani, said while introducing the bill in the Lok Sabha.
19वीं शताब्दी में लड़कियों की शादी की उम्र 10 वर्ष थी। 1940 तक शादी की आयु को 12 से 14 किया गया। 78 में 15 साल तक की लड़कियों का ब्याह कर दिया गया। आज पहली बार इस अमेंडमेंट के माध्यम से महिला और पुरुष दोनों 21 साल की उम्र में समानता के अधिकार को देखते हुए शादी विवाह का अपना निर्णय ले सकते हैं।
And Ms. Jaitly, let me begin the program with you. You were heading this task force. Now we know that the marriageable age was increased from 16 to 18 back in 1978. Even after 40 years, there's dismal record as far as child marriage in this country is concerned. While you were deliberating, what kind of thoughts went to it when you were making the recommendations to the government?
Well, first and foremost, the figures. The figures were 1 in 3 have child marriages in India, which is unimaginable. We don't even think about it usually. The other thing was 15 million, that's the highest in the world, of child marriages was in India. We have also signed up on all the UN conventions, especially on women, from time to time, right from the beginning of CEDAW till the most recent one, in which gender parity, women's participation in everything, all that was accepted. The most recent one, which we had not got around to, was clearly saying that there has to be gender parity in marriage as well. That had got left out. And nobody was actually mentioning it at all. Nobody seemed to find it strange and illogical that boys 21, so they could complete their studies. And with girls, they were not expected to go beyond the +2, which is really sad, because how can you achieve parity if your starting point is already a handicap. So these were all the issues that we started with, that equalizing according to world accepted conventions, and gender parity was important for India, and the fact that despite having improved from 27% to 23%, that was very slow.
So that was slow, so hence these recommendations came.
Hence, it was time, because the last time we changed was in 1978,
Absolutely.
as you mentioned,
Yeah.
from 16 to 18.
So it was the need of the hour. All right, Dr. Khan, coming to you now. India would be amongst the few countries globally where the legal age of marriage for women would be 21 if this bill was passed in near future. In neighboring China, it is 20, while in countries like the UK and the US, it is 18, but with exceptions and variations. What are your thoughts on increasing the marriageable age for women?
First of all, I would like to say that gender parity is, of course, one of the very beautiful goals that we should be reaching towards. But then, will only numbers help us to do that? At what age one should get married? Will we achieve gender parity through that only by uniforming the age? Because as of now, even when the age is 18 years for girls, girls are still getting married below 18 years of age, and they are not studying, especially in rural areas. The reasons are very different from what we are trying to address. The reasons are that there are no educational facilities in rural areas, we don't have skill development, we don't have things to keep these people occupied till they get married. The problem is that.
Yeah.
And to bring in a new law for that, I feel we are overloading the already overloaded legal system, and it's going to get us nowhere. It's the implementation that is important, and the implementation of even the earlier law, it is there that we are failing. It's not in having a law or not. Because see, the problem for us Indians is more of a social problem than a legal one, because even when you are going on the road, it's not the traffic light that stops you, it's the speed breaker that stops you. So we have to devise a system where we bring in gender parity more through addressing the problems that exist than just having a law. That is my opinion on this.
Absolutely, ma'am. You made a very important point about effective implementation. We'll just talk about it in a bit. But Dr. Deswal, as Dr. Khan is pointing out that India is home to every third child bride in the world, how do we address the underlying causes?
I would just like to add to what Dr. Khan said. This is a social problem, and we are trying to resolve this social problem through a legal intervention. No doubt, law is a very potent tool for social transformation. But first, the change has to come about. See, I don't say that this is not a positive step. Undoubtedly, it's a laudable move, and we need to make it 21, because as Madam Jaitly said, that at 21, when a boy is fit for job, at 18, what is a girl fit for? Yes. Reproduction. Okay, so that is what the patriarchal social institution of marriage has enjoined us to believe in for a very long time. So yes, the change has to come about, but merely making the law, unless and until first we are going to educate and empower our girls, till the time we are not making them independent and actually equals in marriage. Right. Till that time, even if we raise it to 21, even if we raise it to 25, what are we in effect doing? The age of consent is 18.
Yes.
And a girl, she cannot marry till 21. I mean, see, so in our very socially closed society, where premarital, extramarital sex, that is frowned upon.
Yes.
Now, what are we doing? We are criminalizing love marriages in a way. In fact, we are giving opportunity to the police and the administration to actually exploit them. Where the parents, they don't want. Ours is a country where we routinely hear about honor killings and all. So now, what about that? How are we going to address all those issues? So, of course, I cannot deny that this is not a progressive move, and that is eventually what our goal should be. 21, definitely yes. But as of now, till the time we do our groundwork, till that time we cannot jump in haste.
All right. So you made very strong points there, very strong observations. Ms. Jaitly, I saw you vehemently disagreeing with her.
No.
Ma'am, please go ahead. Floor is yours.
I'm not disagreeing. I agree with the points because those are the points everybody who's got a bit troubled by this move has been making. And I think they're very fair points if they are not aware of what we recommended. That's why I'm glad I'm here, because we absolutely took this into consideration. And as the chairperson, one of my first sentences at the first meeting of the committee was to say, laws can't change things. You have to also provide all the support systems so that the law becomes attractive to follow. And even today, just to start at the beginning, even today, even though it's 18 and people are getting married earlier, all those 15 million who have, how many have been criminalized? No one, unless the parents both also make a noise, but it's the children who finally, one of the partners has to complain. I also agree that the girl, if she's got married without her wanting to, has no guts to complain afterwards. So there are these problems. But actually, the enforcement is left to society to adjust among themselves. So there is no question of criminalization now when there wasn't criminalization earlier. We said, and in equal measure, along with the law, even beforehand, don't wait for the law to actually get passed, provide the school systems, provide transport for girls who can't go to school because it's at a distance. Provide a room in the panchayat office where the girls can sit and study. Provide them with mobile phones or iPads or anything like that. One thing we have to remember that this actually happens in all the poverty-ridden parts of the country. The very backward, where the parents have no way of surviving without putting either all their children to work or getting rid of the girls so that they don't have to feed them. The girls are also not sitting at home doing nothing. The parents are laborers. They go out to work all day, and the chote siblings are made to be looked after by the elder girl. There's a lot of burden on them because they're an extra house worker. So if they want them at home, they make them work at home at useless things. Or if they send them out, it's because they don't want to have to feed them. That is what we have to address, the poverty. For the poverty, what you can do, provide schooling, free schooling, which is there. Secondly, you have to provide health checkups. We have to, from the beginning of puberty, in those classes, have monthly checkups for girls to see are they anemic. That's the main cause of maternal mortality, is anemia. You have to check whether the girls are having enough vitamins and iron. They have to have their menstruation periods checked. They have to have sanitary pads in schools. They all say this openly. So it's something that is now part of public discourse, and it's good. When they do all this, then you can enforce the law. Till then, quite honestly, the police have enough on their hand. They are not going to danda maro anybody for having got married early if nobody's complaining. It's not a good situation, but at least the step taken in the right direction, the recognition of what inputs you need to make it work. And apart from health and education, the third thing I've said is very important is campaigning.
Yes.
Go to rural areas. I saw yesterday in the paper there's a mobile van with video against child marriage going to villages. You need to have movies in the open air so that people can come out and see.
Absolutely. So you're talking about the laws. Let me take that to Dr. Khan. Dr. Khan, even though more than 1 in 5 marriages took place below age 18, hardly any violations of the Act appear in the criminal records of the country. So how do we ensure that violations are actually punished?
See, I don't believe in punishing or criminalizing anything at any age. That is, out of question, I feel here, because this is a mindset which we need to change. And when we have to change a mindset, what we need is another strategy. And for that strategy, we require investments more than any law.
Yeah.
So basically, the government must first focus on investment. You go to a typical village. In a village, you may have a school up to class 5. You may have a school up to class 8, or you may have a school up to class 12. But for higher education, a girl has to go out of her village, and parents are not willing to send her. Many parents are not willing to send because they are afraid that her security is at stake. So we have to have more security measures. We have to have more institutions that come up in villages. We have to have more skill development programs. It's actually the mind which has to be kept occupied so that the girls and their parents feel that they are achieving something. And they should achieve something, because in the end, it's financial independence that is more important. And unless they reach that financial independence, no matter what is the age of marriage, it is irrespective of that they are going to be exploited. So when they get married, they should be standing on their own feet. Moreover, when we talk about the legal system, I would like to say that you have thought about increasing and making it uniform for male and female to be at age 21 for marriage. But what about becoming an adult? When you are an adult in India at the age of 18.
Yes.
So you can vote at 18, but you cannot get married at 18. Another thing is that a law has to be flexible for all kinds of situations. Now, just assume a situation where a girl of, say, 15 years, 16 years gets pregnant. Now, are we building a dead wall for that girl that she cannot get married till she's 21? In such cases, which are happening very frequently around us, what do? Does our law speak about it? Do we address this in the Act? I think what is more important is this than simply increasing the age of marriage. Unless we take all these steps forward, for instance, we can have an award fixed in a Gram Sabha, women's Gram Sabhas may be taken, where they can be awarded for having more education, for having more skill-based courses, ensuring that all girls in the village or in the slums are educated properly. I think this should be our priority. And if we move in the right direction, we are for everything that goes forward. But priorities first, that I feel is important.
All right, ma'am, let me take that point to Ms. Jaitly. Ms. Jaitly, you can choose your parliamentarian at 18, but not your partner. How do you allay her concern?
Well, you're not stuck with your parliamentarian for life, but you're expected to be with your husband for life. And you have children. That's not an outcome of voting. So there's far more responsibility in that. I think that's a very casual approach to take, that voting is the same. Voting was actually 21. It came down to 18, in fact, for political reasons, which I won't go into.
Okay.
But otherwise, I think that voting or having a majority to be able to get a license to drive are different matters. This is a personal and a life choice. It is, preferably for everybody, a lifelong decision in which you have the burden of producing children, which means more lives dependent on you. It's really too casual to compare it to voting. You can decide not to vote, but there is more pressure to get married. You yourself may want to, and your parents will want you to. It's different. I 100% agree with her. All these components which she's mentioned are absolutely necessary. Those are issues which will be handled by the individual ministries. We discussed many components in our task force meetings, and they became details which the Secretary Health, Secretary Education, Secretary Higher Education, Lower Education. And one thing you mentioned about the sexual activity. The very good news I can convey is that the ministries are very open. They say we should not be moralistic.
Yes.
Both the children and the ministry officials, whom you would never expect to say such a thing, they said, yes, well, they all are very open about it. They all have sex. Let's teach them to have safe sex. Let's teach them to respect each other. We have to deal with reality. If you have sex, that doesn't mean you're going to get pregnant and your parents are going to then force you into marriage. So we have to know, we know the facts, we know what should be done as caring adults, but we also know that some things need adjustment, mutual understanding. We also waited a long time and waited for the National Education Policy, the new one, to be announced. because there it said we are going to pick poor areas. Those zones will be specially targeted for girls as well. So there's a lot of good news in the recommendations.
Yes.
And it's for the ministries to translate them into all the good points that the parliamentarians, I hope, will make.
All right, ma'am, you made a very important point. I'll quickly take your comment, Dr. Deswal. How do we create more awareness about women's sexual and reproductive rights? I think that is the fulcrum of the debate.
No, it's not only about that, but yes, that is also a very important point. Okay, that is more about awareness. Once you educate them, once you give them the right to choose, and then again, when we stop being moralistic, okay, when we don't judge people for the choices that they make. One important point that was raised by Dr. Khan was that what if a girl gets pregnant and she wants to get married? Now here, what I want to say is that, see, if you are pregnant, it is not necessary to have the child, and it is not necessary to get married also. There can be single mothers, okay? Educate our daughters to understand the consequences, the repercussions of whatever they are getting into.
But ma'am, has our society changed so much
Not
to
at
have a
all.
single mother?
Not at all. But see,
Well,
we
there
are
many
allowing
single women who adopt children these
adopt
days.
children.
Nobody
Exactly.
minds, everybody welcomes a child. I think we're changing, and it's for some progressive people to push the change. We should not be scared of pushing for change, which is allowing freedom to women and to society as such, but responsibly, with some value system based on it, some ethics involved in human relationships. Those are important.
And ma'am, if you want to make a decision, so you should be capable of bearing the consequences of your decision.
Absolutely.
Okay? That is what is more important. And then coming to that age of majority thing, there is a very positive thing about this bill is, and what it says is, after you attain majority, earlier you had a window of 2 years. Now they have extended it to 5 years. During the time when you can decide whether you want to continue with the marriage or whether you want to get it annulled. So this is, see, even it is not that some magic happens when you suddenly turn 18 and you know exactly what is good or what is bad for you. So after that also, this bill gives them a time of 5 years to decide whether you want to continue in the marriage, and if you don't want to, then there's an easy exit point.
Right.
Unlike going to the courts and getting a divorce, you can just get your marriage annulled.
Absolutely. All right, so let's take some questions from our audience here. Please go ahead, introduce yourself and speak your mind.
My question is that in this line, the committee that has been constituted comprises of 31 members, out of which only one happens to be a woman, the Trinamool MP Sushmita Dev. Honorable Ms. Jaitly, the chairperson, has also publicly stated that it would be unfair if such a committee does not have at least 50% women as the members. In this line, ma'am, can such a mechanism be operationalized with reference to this committee in particular, vis-a-vis the Prohibition of Child Marriage Amendment Bill of 2021?
Well, I think the chairperson of the committee, it is his prerogative to invite more people on. I'm not sure whether he's allowed to actually increase the number arbitrarily, but he can invite women to sit in. And I think their views should be taken equally strongly, whether they're a full-time member of the committee or they're just invited for this discussion.
Right. Let's take the other question now.
Prohibition of Child Marriage Amendment Bill 2021 proposes to declare that the provisions of the bill shall have overriding effect over every other law, custom, usage or practice governing the parties. It will probably lead to impact on personal and religious laws. So what's your comments on this issue vis-a-vis the debate on Uniform Civil Code, Article 44 of Indian Constitution?
Dr. Deswal, you would like to take that?
Yeah, I'd like to take that. See, Article 44, it declares that we need to have a uniform civil code, but we still don't have one. Now, I'll take you back to Shah Banu judgment that came in the early 1980s, wherein the Supreme Court had categorically ruled that whenever there is a conflict between a personal law and a secular law, the secular law should prevail.
Right.
See, that is something which our courts have been repeating over time and again. But what has happened that many of the high courts, what the stand that they take is that even though we have this secular Child Marriage Prohibition Act, still they bring in these religious considerations and they say that, okay, as per the Islamic law, if age of puberty is
Yes.
the age at which a girl can get married. So they allow a girl who's 15 or 16 to get married. Now see, I would like to condemn this outright, because if we go by the age of puberty, girls nowadays, they are attaining puberty as young as 9 or 10. Does that mean that we are going to allow them to get married? So this is a welcome move, much awaited. Now there is an absolute clarity that this law, this bill, if passed, it will have an overriding effect over all other religious laws,
Right.
customs, practices, usages. So we are bringing in a uniformity.
Time for last question, and that should be addressed to Dr. Khan there.
The real challenges that women are facing, the safety, the health, the education, the job access, maybe we should focus there more. Because I
Yes.
feel that still in this patriarchal society, marriage is more important. Marriage seems like a more important topic for a woman rather than education, health,
All right.
nutrition.
Let me take that to Dr. Khan. Dr. Khan, your response, please.
Yeah, I think, what is the total goal of all of us is women's empowerment and gender parity. So when we talk about women's empowerment, I think the first thing that should be there for women's empowerment is for her freedom to make her own choice as far as her marriage is concerned, because marriage ultimately is a social contract. And she may break the contract if she wants, she may continue the contract if she wants. The most modern thinking would be that if she has a choice to make her own decision when she's an adult, aren't we snatching away her choice of adulthood by imposing a condition for age in this bill? She should have a choice to be an adult when she wants to.
All right, so as they say, equality emanates from equal laws, and social transformations are both the precursors of laws and a consequence of them. A change in law is also more likely to bring changes in social perceptions in progressive societies. On that note, thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Jaitly, Dr. Deswal, and also Dr. Khan. Next week, we'll return with incisive analysis of another important bill. Till then, take care and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Namaskar.